I had a hot girlfriend, then I became the hot girlfriend. It's just that we're different. You and I are different, and we can coexist in this world as different women with different experiences. I wear my womanhood with a lot of pride. My boyfriend of 4 years and I had a fight about you. I'm like, what? Make peace with the solitude that comes with raising your standards. Be with like the wrong person, but like a really rich wrong person who pays for all of your therapy.
Hi, Trinetra.
Hi.
Firstly, can I call you Trin or Trin? I love the sound of the name.
You can call me Trin, you can call me Trin, you can call me Trinetra. Everyone calls me a different thing,
Yeah.
so whatever you find comfortable.
Dr. Trin though is out of this world
Doctor,
only.
to please no. Let's not, no, that's
Yeah.
very formal.
Yeah, but I think Trin is great.
Trin is great.
Trin is great.
Imagine walking into a hospital looking like this. That's the vibe I get when it's like, doctor. It's like, okay, not the right space.
Patients would be elated, by the way. They are not going to complain if that were to be the case.
I remember.
Sight for sore eyes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But thank you for agreeing to come on our podcast. And of course, I've been following your journey on Instagram. And it's been so inspiring and so wonderful, especially for your community. The fact that you've been so open and so vulnerable has been so commendable, and I think it's incredibly brave of you to do that. So congratulations.
Thank you. I'm so bad with hearing nice things said about myself. I'm just like, but thank you.
Take it. You deserve it. You've worked hard. You've been through too much to get here.
It's true.
So just like take it unapologetically. Yeah. But so when we were sort of speaking to Anvesh last season, and I feel like I want to be the best kind of ally that one can be. So I try to educate myself as much as I can in my endeavor to be that ally. And of course, when we had that the chance to chat with Anvesh, I learned so much, and I thought that, through this people can learn so much.
Exactly.
And there is of course so much curiosity around you, because now you're this really phenomenal actor. And you came in like this amazing web series. So well done, Trin.
Thank you so much.
Good for you.
Appreciate it. It's been a long journey, but can't complain.
Yeah.
Cannot.
Retrospectively, I'm sure you can't complain, but I'm sure those years were very challenging. To say
oh my
the
God,
least.
yeah, for sure. But I think, so since moving to Bombay, you think that, okay, now is going to be sort of where it starts from and gets harder. But I have been supremely blessed. So let me say that. But no, let's get to your question first, and then we'll start from there.
No, yeah. So actually, let's start with that. Let's start with, because in a lot of your conversations, you've mentioned, your journey growing up.
Yeah.
And, sort of figuring out, your gender identity and facing that, and, the bullying that you had growing up, etc. So maybe we'll talk about that, but let's talk about now.
Okay.
I think that's interesting.
Cool.
So tell us your time since you moved to Bombay, as you were saying, and then maybe we can just,
take it from there.
Take it from there.
Sounds good. Okay. So I moved to Bombay exactly a year ago in April. And for me, I think the city has always sort of stood for, it's going to sound so cheesy, but it's been such a city of dreams in like the most quintessential, truest sense of the word, because I first came here in 2021, I think. 2020, late 2020, to audition for Made in Heaven. And I'd never auditioned for anything before that. I had no idea how this industry works. And it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I've come to Juhu and I've gone to the beach. That was my first night in Bombay ever. And it was also a date.
Ooh.
So I had a friend with me. He's a surgeon. And yeah, let's just say it was a nice date.
Done.
And that was my first night in the city. And then I auditioned the next day and I got the part. And that was my first hint that this city might have, I don't know, something legitimate to offer. And by the time I'd finished my internship, I think I was traveling here every weekend anyway. Like I was spending so much time and money back and forth. I figured it makes no sense to not do this for a while,
Yeah.
And the thing about medicine is once you're in it, you're in it.
Yeah.
And once you start your postgrad, that is it. So I was like, let's take a break. Let's come here. And then Made in Heaven happened, and that got released last year. And then Rainbow Rishta got released last year. So it's been wild.
Yeah.
Wild. I'm still sort of like, even while I talk about it, it feels a little surreal. But it happened. Yeah, all of it happened.
You say Bombay feels like the city of dreams.
Yeah.
What did young Trin dream of?
Wow, heavy. What did young Trin dream of? I think young Trin didn't even know that Trin would happen, because you're like born into this family and then you're expected to be this tough macho dude. And so I didn't know that being Trin was possible. So by the time that happened, I was like in my final year of med school. And then auditioning, becoming an actor is not even something you think of in your wildest dreams.
Yeah, someone doing PCM bio is not thinking
Yeah.
of auditioning.
Yeah, I was literally a PCMB kid.
Yeah.
And I was the nerdiest nerd dude. Like, I was that kid in class who would sit in one corner, not talk to anybody, glasses, kind of chubby, super feminine for a boy. And then suddenly, I'm hot. And I was like, oh. And I think when I auditioned for Made in Heaven is when I realized that, oh, I don't look that bad, actually.
I think you look
And
fantastic.
And beyond that, I think just the privilege and honor of being able to step into like another person's skin and to play that part and to step away from your history and your past is so fulfilling. And that's when I realized that acting it's not just winging it. There's a process to it. And I fell in love with it. And I knew I had to do more of it. So I think baby Trin would have never known.
Yeah.
But so many of these dreams that I wasn't even allowed to dream have come true.
Wow.
So it's like, whoa,
It's like God's plan is better than your plan kind
Bilkul.
of situation.
Bilkul. But I'm rambling. I feel like I'm rambling.
Not at all. You're not rambling because now we know baby Trin. Now let's go to teenage Trin. Teenage Trin apparently had a girlfriend for a bit as well.
Yeah, I had a hot girlfriend, then I became the hot girlfriend.
Yeah. Now that's the transition that one ought to be watching out for.
But that, I don't want to sound reductive about it, but the thing is, back then, I was this very effeminate teenager. I was very awkward. And I'd come out to a few people also. I'd said, I'm exploring, I don't know who I am, I like girls kind of, but I really like men a lot more. And at that time is when we went to Germany for a German language camp, and I met her, and we dated. Whatever that means for like a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
But I knew it wasn't comfortable because I was not who I wanted to be, and the person that was attracted to me was attracted to a version that was not true, So I felt for the first time that I needed to become myself in order to be happy in a relationship or with someone who's attracted to the real version of me. And I think post-transition, when that happened for the first time, is when I was like, okay, this is the feeling that was missing there, so...
Did it feel like so cathartic? Like once, let's say the surgery is done.
Yeah.
You're sitting there and you see yourself.
Yeah.
What was that feeling like?
Oh my God. It was... I think there was this moment when I woke up from surgery, and it was a weird mix of feelings. It was like the doctor inside you was like, is everything going to be okay? But there is a part of you that has waited for this release for the longest time. And for the first time, when you look at yourself in the mirror, when the patti and the bandages are opened, and I was shown a mirror to what the surgeon had done, I was like, I was very shaken. You know, there was a sense of calm, a sense of peace, but this overwhelming sense of, I finally feel like my body sort of matches
Wow.
who I am. And I don't know how to describe that in words. It's still very intense. I have videos from that time, I have photos from that time. And of course, recovery was hard. It was the hardest thing I've ever been through in my entire life. 3 months of just unrelenting pain, you know, which is why it's funny when people hold it against you that, oh, you will never feel the pain of childbirth. First of all, not every biological or cis woman wants to. So
Yeah.
it's really weird to put that out there as this argument, as if it's this rite of passage, which it's not. But I don't think people realize the pain that we go through.
Yeah.
And what that is like both on a social level and a medical level. And that's not to say that we should be comparing. It's just that we're different. You and I are different, and we can coexist in this world as different women with different experiences without tearing each other down or one person saying, oh, I'm more valid than you. You know?
You know, just as you're speaking and
yeah.
talking about that moment, it was such a like moment of realization on my part that I have taken so much for granted.
Sure.
Right? Just the fact that what a privilege it is to just, you know, be cis,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And
And that's not to say that a cis person's life is easy. Of course not.
no life is easy, but
You know?
like to not have to go through, you know, identifying and, you know, just feeling like, oh, my body and me are the same.
Yeah.
That is such a privilege. And it's
It
something I've
is.
learned just from this moment. So
Yeah.
thank you for
Of
making me
course.
feel like that, you know?
Yeah. And the thing is, it's not an attack when someone points
Not
that
at
out.
all.
You know,
Not
it's
at all.
just that some of us have had to go through a very specific journey to access ourselves.
Yeah.
And everyone is self-discovering, and everyone is sort of on this path of transition. But in a society that wants you to be dead, I don't know how else to put it. You know, in a society that doesn't want to see you thrive and succeed, it takes something to put your womanhood out there and choose it on a daily basis, even though it's not a choice, but to choose to live your truth on a daily basis. That's hard.
That's very hard.
So,
And I think a part of, you know, the challenges that you're talking about, I'm sure what was, actually you can speak for yourself. I should ask you that and not
that's
assume.
okay. Yeah.
Is sharing your journey of transition.
Yeah.
You know, did you have apprehensions while doing that, or did you feel like it was just so necessary for
I
other
think,
people to feel motivated?
Sure. The first thing is, you know, whenever we talk about transition, there is always such talk about the pain of it and the struggle of it. But I think it's also the most beautiful journey that I've ever embarked on, to be honest, because I wear my womanhood with a lot of pride. And I wear my femininity with so much pride, whether it's a piece of jewelry, whether it is a stick of kajal, whether it is a sari, whatever. You know, I feel like for some of us, accessing those things is so hard that to just be able to do these small things feels so cathartic. And just to sit across from you like this, celebrating my expression in a sari, I mean, oh my God, it's such a beautiful feeling. So transition is not all about pain and misery. It's a lot of beauty also. But that said, I think your question was,
did you have apprehensions while sharing the process?
while sharing. I think for me it wasn't a choice because it was my way of I don't know, processing it. It was therapy for me. Talking about transition via Instagram, YouTube, documenting the entire process. I feel like had I not shared it, I would have lost it because I didn't have a therapist at the time. And also, my friend circle was changing on a daily basis because you lose a lot of people.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, you lose a lot of people. And so the internet became my safe space. And I had apprehensions, sure, but not remotely on the same level as the freedom of being able to just tell the whole world that this is who I am. And you can take it or leave it.
Yeah. Was the internet more supportive than unsupportive?
I think initially it was a lot of trolling. In that time, I remember when we didn't have the kinds of controls on Instagram that we have today, for example. I couldn't block, I couldn't restrict, I didn't know what that meant. That part was hard. But at the same time, in medical school, I didn't have a community of queer people or trans people. And the internet brought that forth for me.
Yeah, true.
And I finally met people that were going through exactly the same experience. And that's when I knew that this is not in my head. I'm not nuts. This is very much a valid experience that people go through. And yeah, thank God for the internet.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And the internet then got you your Made in Heaven audition as well.
It did. I think that was the time that I was an intern. I just started interning and I'd vlogged through surgery. So, like, literally on a day by day basis, there was this documentation of what I was going through. And that blew up, Instagram blew up, and then the casting directors of Made in Heaven, they found me. And I auditioned, and the rest is history.
The rest really is history. I loved your character.
Thank you.
Meher on Made in Heaven. I remember, of course, the series is so good. You know, you end up binge watching it. I pretty much saw it within a weekend, if not less. And I remember loving the fact that there was so much to your character in terms of writing and the layers that were there in the character. And then I heard you also say that you were not reduced to your transness in the character of Meher, which you really liked.
Correct.
So when you read a character like that, do you feel like, wow, I think this, when people see, they will understand my journey or journey of people like me a lot better?
Absolutely. I think that, of course, back then when I read the script for the first time, it was the first time I was reading a script in my life.
Of course.
So there was no frame of reference that, okay, this is how it's usually done. I was blessed, honestly, because I know actors who've been in this world for a while.
Yeah.
And they've struggled to find material that is really sensitive. So to come across work that was written by Zoya, first of all, is such a blessing. Oh my God, like it's not lost on me how much time it takes an actor to get to that point. Yeah. But that said, just reading the whole thing for the first time, I was sobbing. I was fully sobbing because I was like, whenever you see a trans person in entertainment, in Indian entertainment, it is, dude, it's like, I don't want to name names, but we're often reduced to comedic, caricaturish, sad
100%.
tropes.
100%.
And it's, at the end of the day, people don't realize that we're human beings. We have hopes and dreams and desires and joys. And none of that gets to make it to a story. And it is so sad.
Yeah.
So to look at that script where Meher, she has a life, she has a job, she has love, which is something that you just don't get to see.
Yeah.
And there's violence, there's transphobia, there's all of that, but she's not reduced to that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spoil this for anyone, but she has a happy ending.
Yeah.
How often does that happen? You
Yeah.
know, so, and I didn't know when I started reading the script that she was going to have a happy ending. In fact, when Zoya told me about it, she told me that, they might break up. And when I read it, I was like, oh my God, it's not a breakup, it's a happy ending. So it was quite, I think, path-breaking in its own way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you were living yourself while acting her out? Like this may have happened with me, or this could have happened with me, or I just feel this, emotion that I am emoting in front of camera.
Yeah. Oh my God. So many times. I cannot tell you. Like, there's a scene where Meher talks about her brother, and she says that I was a really bad brother, but I'm a better sister. It is so true. It is so, so true. And I think that they may have gotten some amount of inspiration from my life. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But I've talked about this extensively on Instagram where Agastya, my younger brother, he's a sweet too. He is a man written by a woman.
Aw.
And his girlfriend comes to me, in a very like sisterly way, and it's very family like, it's very sweet. But I think he was the first to find out that I was queer. He had my phone for a day. He found messages where I was talking about some MasterChef Australia hot contestant and being like really creepy about it. Oh God.
Male contestant, I have a feeling.
He was a surfer
Ah.
and he was gorge, and I was just like fully dishing out heavy compliments. And Agastya found them. He confronted me. He was just like, "Oh my God, what is this?" But it was a very simple, chill conversation where he understood it, and then we moved on from that. And I think even with the whole gender thing, he switched from Dada to Didi very quickly. It was
How
never,
wonderful.
yeah, it wasn't like one big fight or anything, no. Even with my parents, the big dhakka, I think, was coming out as queer when I was 13, 14, saying that I might like boys. But by the time I was 18, 19, and I figured that I was a woman, they were like, okay, we've read up about this, we want to support. So it's not easy. It's never easy, right? Even after that point, they weren't like super accepting right away. But that said, I think parents take time. Indian parents love denial, and Indian parents take time to sort of accept that that child is their own being and you cannot control them. But now it is what it is. And mom gifts me her saris, her jewelry,
Love it.
her makeup, all of it. Yeah.
You know, listening to your story about your brother, about your parents and your journey,
Yeah.
I think, you know, there are so many kids who might, you know, be watching you closely and feeling like, oh, you know, maybe I can muster up the courage, you know, and probably just live the kind of life that Trin is living one day.
Yeah.
You know, do you feel like a certain sense of responsibility, you know, as someone who's kind of been an advocate and now is an actor, you know, even in your choices that you make, in terms of your projects, or, you know, what you say on Instagram in terms of, you know, things you say, let's say on a podcast like this, you know, do you feel a sense of like, you know, responsibility?
I think, you know, it's two things. One, of course, there is this pressure that you have to say the right thing. And that's a pressure that came onto me at a very young age, right? Because the entirety of my transition happened when I was, 17, 18, 19. That's when I started talking about things. And at that age, I feel like you haven't experienced life at all.
Yeah.
You know, of course, you've been through a lot and different people from different backgrounds. I come from a lot of privilege, so perhaps I don't get to say. But very personally, I feel like, you know, in retrospect at 17, I didn't know anything about the world, about myself. And I suddenly became a representative for a community.
Yeah.
Which ends up happening because, you know, the trans and queer communities are so underrepresented.
Yeah.
That, you know, when finally there's people who are talking about it out and loud, or have the privilege to talk about it out and loud and proud, suddenly you're like, oh my God, everything that I say will be scrutinized and dissected.
Yeah.
And when there's a social element to it, or a social justice element to it, it can be really scary.
Yeah.
To take a stand, right? But I feel like, you know, when it's your own life, you don't have a choice. That perhaps if it's just about trans issues, someone who's not trans has the option to not think about it.
Yeah.
Dude, this is hilarious. Like, you know, sometimes girls will text me saying, my boyfriend of 4 years and I had a fight about you. I'm like, what? And she'll be like, you know, I brought you up and he was against trans people and I had no idea. And I was like, can you imagine someone that you're with for 4 years? This has never come up.
In conversation
In
only, this has never
conversation.
come up.
And That's cis privilege right there.
100%.
You know? Because
100%.
how can I possibly be in a relationship with someone and not talk about it for 4 years?
Yeah.
So, I think those small things people take for granted. But coming back to the responsibility of it, on the one hand, even though it can be hard to constantly represent, even when you're doing your work as an actor, because as an actor, you shouldn't have to constantly think about the messaging of everything, right?
Correct.
That can be restricting. Because as an actor, your job is to act.
And this is not true for all other actors, na?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah. And I, as a trans person, constantly feel like, I might be held responsible for just doing my job as an actor, which is very unfair. Because, I would like to play problematic characters, yeah?
Yeah.
I would like to play characters who say the wrong thing, who do the wrong thing. So long as the overarching theme and the script and the narrative aligns with my politics, then I'm fine with it. But I don't want to constantly be playing characters who are very high horsey about saying the right thing.
Yeah.
And I think on the one hand there is responsibility, but on the other hand it is one of the biggest privileges of my life to have an audience of young people between ages 18 and 25, right? Such a community of young queer and trans people that I would have never known, never learned from, never been inspired by had I not shared my story.
What is the sweetest message that you got?
The sweetest message? So there was this one person that was like, Trinetra, you were singing in a story, you were singing Kuch To Log Kahenge or something. And I showed it to my grandmom, and she's this very conservative woman, and she heard it. She was like, oh, how sweet. She has a heavy voice. How come? And she sort of gave her this story, and she was like, oh my God, I didn't know that trans people can be normal, quote unquote.
And because our representation is so poor, that's why.
Correct. And of course, using words like normal, abnormal can be problematic. But yeah, imagine there are old people out there that your content can reach through whatever way. And that blew my mind. I was just doing bakchodi. Can I say bakchodi?
Yeah. You were doing bakchodi.
Yeah, I was doing bakchodi on a story, and it reached somebody who suddenly realized that this community can be filled with people that they can relate to.
Yeah.
So that was very sweet. There was this other message by a parent of a trans child who said that your content has helped us being better parents. So I think those messages always hit very hard.
I think that's so important though for young children and parents of young children, the fact that today they have the opportunity to consume content, let's say from someone like you, so that, they understand what their child is going through, because we have no reference points.
Correct.
Right? As you said, 4 years, somebody didn't even discuss
in a relationship.
In a relationship, you didn't discuss this at all. So these are not points of discussion that ordinarily you have sitting across a dinner table, clearly.
You don't.
And, then for young parents, I think it's so important to have conversations like these amongst themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if at all the child is going through anything, and it could be any journey of discovery, then it can just make them a little more aware.
Fully. Because look, at the end of the day, we're not taught this stuff in schools. We're not taught this stuff on television and entertainment. So where is it going to come from? I'm so glad, trans and queer content creators are putting their lives out there, man. It's unfortunately, you have to become the representation that you didn't have.
Yeah.
And that's where it is. So
it's very true. But, we were talking about it, and I think I texted you, and as we were having this conversation that you and I are going to sit and have this chat together, my sister, who's an artist, she loves painting the Ardhanareshwar. She's done it now a few times, and I think she does a good job of it. So she had made one version. It was just sitting there, and I saw it, and I just thought of you. And then I also,
so sweet, man. Oh my God.
And I also thought of the fact that, so much in Indian mythology, whether it's Shikandi or, this, has existed. in our temples, in
Absolutely.
our history.
Yeah.
And yet we are so hypocritical about our acceptance of it, you know.
It's bizarre. Oh my God. I feel like, India is full of contradictions, like that. Much as I love, 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 love being an Indian woman, sometimes it's like, why don't we acknowledge our own culture first?
Yeah.
Why don't we acknowledge our own mythology and history and know where we come from and then argue, right?
Yeah.
Because to say that something is Western culture that has come to India and is now ruining us is so bizarre. Have you been to a temple in Khajuraho and seen what people are doing in those carvings,
Yeah.
Have you read anything from the Kama Sutra?
Yeah.
Have you, say, read an author like Devdutt Patnaik,
Yeah.
who writes about Indian mythology and the queerness in it extensively?
Yeah.
It doesn't take much to just, I don't know, Google search, yeah?
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I chose my name, which is Trinetra, is because as a Bengali woman, Durga Puja was very, very important to us, right? To me in particular, because I didn't grow up in Calcutta or in Bengal, but my mom is Bengali.
Yeah.
So Pujo was that time that, the stories of like Durga being a fierce feminine energy, we were told that story again and again. And for me, my womanhood needed to represent that fierceness. And Trinetra is a name for both Shiva and Parvati, right? So it sort of stands for that little bit of gender neutrality in our culture. So yeah, that's how it happened.
And you've come so far in your journey, and I was thinking I have to ask Trin, and you can say it's you, that if you were to give a little bit of credit for your success and for who you are to anyone, including yourself, who would that be?
The credit, let's see. I would say that this is going to sound like, I don't know, stoic or I don't know.
No, let it sound like whatever. Say whatever.
If we were to talk about who to give credit, there's no other answer to this than all of the trans people who came before me. Because,
how wonderful.
I would not be sitting here talking to you, living the life that I live with rights, if there weren't like thousands of trans people who fought on the streets, who went to court to fight the Nalsa judgment until it came out. Sri Gauri ji, so many people, right? Grace Banu, an activist in the south of India. There's Vai Jayanti. There's all of these activists who've been fighting so hard at the grassroots so that we could, I don't know, have a name for ourselves. So, we'd be nothing without our elders. And that sounds basic, but it's true.
It's also very kind and, nice of you to acknowledge the work that they've done, for the community.
With children at the end of the day,
Yeah.
I'm 26 and I know people who transitioned in the 80s, 90s, and times were very different.
Brutal.
You know. And Ghazal Haliwalia, she's the reason that I watched a trans person on television for the first time. It was her on Satyamev Jayate.
Yeah.
And that's how I came out. Thank God for all of these incredible people.
As you came out, and you said before that from having a hot girlfriend, you became a hot girlfriend. What has the journey of dating and relationships been like for you?
Girl.
It's hectic.
What has it been like? You tell me, what has it been like for you?
Amusing. Educative.
Are you seeing someone right now?
No, I'm not.
I mean, I would like to say no, but I wouldn't be very honest. But I'll say no.
No, but I'm saying, how did you maneuver your way through kind of dating? Because it can be tricky because...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, for me, dating was not even a priority when I was starting to transition because, how do you love someone? Even the idea of loving someone before you love yourself feels far-fetched.
Yeah.
So, the first few steps in transition were an attempt at fully loving myself and then seeing if something happens, it happens. But after surgery, after the entire procedure was done, is when I suddenly realized I can have male attention if I wanted to.
Yeah.
And that was a terrifying realization, because in that time, you don't know if it's good attention or bad attention.
True. Very true.
And that whole phase as a teenager that perhaps a cis woman has, I was having in my early 20s in medical school.
Yeah.
So I didn't know when someone was taking me for a ride. I didn't know when someone was trying to use me. So
Because the whole experience is so new to you,
it's
right?
new.
It's so new.
Because before that, I used to date gay men.
Yeah.
Because I lived my life as a man, so to speak, with
Yeah.
a very different experience than the other men for sure. But the men were gay or bi, right? But transitioning also meant that the dating pool suddenly became straight men with whom you have to start from like scratch.
Yeah.
There's no concept of LGBT or queerness, right? So all the education has to start from like the absolute basics. I say this all the time. I deserve to get paid for the emotional labor that I do.
But I can only imagine this, I'm just thinking that you meet someone and you like someone and there's obvious chemistry and they're interested and everything is as it is,
Correct.
right? It's clear, clean, whatever. Both parties are interested.
Yeah.
And, then you have to sit and explain your journey to them and see, can they understand even?
Correct. Because the thing is, I think any relationship involves you talking about your life. That's the case with anybody. There is an education there where you teach somebody how to love you, right? And everyone has to do that. No one knows by default how to love you.
Yeah.
But the thing is, given that there is such stigma around dating a trans person, there are logistics that, say, your partner may not have thought of. As in, how do I tell my parents if it gets that serious?
Yeah.
How do I tell my friends? How do I hang out with everybody in the same room?
Yeah.
And then there's the added fact that I'm also known to a lot of people. So showing up in public sometimes and being recognized on a date can be awkward. And that's not something that a partner anticipates. But at the end of the day, sometimes I feel like, thank God I'm trans. Thank God I'm different, because if I wasn't, it's possible that I would have been that woman in a 4-year-long relationship with a horrible person.
Yeah.
Thank God that I never have to do that. Yeah. Because by virtue of being different, by virtue of being trans, I have automatically filtered out so many people.
True.
And if someone's able to really go all the way to accept, to celebrate, then my job is already done.
Yeah. And that man, when he's the kind that's like, I want to introduce you to my mom, you know that he is a kind, progressive, decent, he's just a basic good human being.
Correct.
And because this is so basic.
Wahi toh, I feel like it takes you so long to understand that these things are not special treatment. That someone
ये basic ask ही है वैसे.
It's very basic.
It's too basic.
And it's unfortunate that we're taught that we deserve so little. Cis women also, right? Like the bar is so low that raising your standards becomes really hard.
Yeah.
But this is really important, I keep telling every young trans girl this also. Make peace with the solitude that comes with raising your standards. Because it's not easy and it will leave you alone sometimes. It will remove certain people from your life. But make peace with a certain degree of loneliness.
Yeah.
Don't see it as loneliness. It's solitude.
Yeah.
Make use of that solitude. Make use of the lack of drama in your life, because it's very easy to have somebody.
Yeah.
But they may not be the right person.
Yeah.
And when they're not the right person, the kind of damage that does, it's not worth it.
उसको recover करने में ही इतना time लग जाता है.
नहीं चाहिए भाई.
नहीं चाहिए. Toxicity कहीं से भी नहीं चाहिए.
Or be with like the wrong person, but like a really rich wrong person who pays for all of your therapy. Because like at least
therapy का खर्चा अलग.
हाँ. Like that should be, a prerequisite. I swear. But I think that, therapy has taught me exactly this. That it is okay to wait.
Yeah.
It's okay to work on yourself, build a rich inner world, use your 20s to become the woman that you've always wanted to be.
Yeah.
And when you've become somebody, you will find somebody.
I completely agree. And you know, at 32, I have to say, Trin, I don't feel alone.
I love
I'm
that.
single, but I'm
Yeah.
not alone. I'm not lonely. And you know,
Love that for
it's a
you.
great life to have.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, it would be great to have someone. And I'm
Yeah.
sure at some point in time, or maybe not, I don't know what life
Yeah.
holds for me, but I can find joy in what I have. And
That
I
is
think
so important.
that is something that you've done too.
I
You
think
know,
so.
from time to time, just found joy in what you have to be able to have come this far.
Bilkul, yaar. And I'm not going to lie, I'm not like perfect and I have my weak moments. And everybody has those days when you're just like, yaar, it would have been nice if one person was around. But again, I feel like you also need to realize that love and affection, these things don't necessarily have to come from a romantic relationship.
100%.
Nurture your platonic friendships, nurture those relationships. Make sure that your inner circle is filled with people that enrich your life.
Yeah.
Why is there a hierarchy to relationships? Why is it that a romantic relationship has to sit on top of that list? And I see this happen all the time. You start dating somebody and suddenly your friends are out of your life. What the hell?
Yeah, friends, family, all gone. Then that person is only your world.
Yeah.
I've never understood that.
I don't think it's romantic. I don't think it's healthy.
I don't think it's healthy.
It's very
either.
toxic.
Yeah.
So this one person being the end all and be all of your life is horrible.
I think happiness is like, because I come from the world of finance, is like a well-diversified portfolio. You know, derive it from different people and different things and different activities. Don't let it just be work or just be family or just be friends, you know, or your partner, of course. It can't be that.
And make sure that that romantic relationship is giving you high returns.
ROI to chahiye.
Because if it's a poorly performing asset, then delete.
Complete delete.
And yeah, I mean, I feel like most relationships in your 20s are depreciating assets.
And 30s mein aake you become stable, so you're like, now they will.
Yeah.
They better appreciate, or I don't want them. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I've invested such bad investments have been made in relationships. I swear to God. At this point, it's just like, I am a queen and I am the sun, and you can revolve around me and stay or leave.
Love that energy. Trin, you're doing so many things.
I try.
Love all of that. Love your skincare videos. I found the one that you did with Kullu so funny.
Kullu is hilarious.
Yeah.
If he's watching this, which he will.
He
we
will,
love
because
you.
because he got us together, so we have to give him the credit.
Yeah.
For this.
Fully.
So you're doing so much. Tell us, what do you do to unwind after hours?
What do I do to unwind? I would say, so a few things. I'm a plant mom pro max.
I have seen that.
For me, I need to buy a new plant every week.
Love it.
It is so therapeutic. I go and spend hours in the nursery doing nothing. I take care of my plants, that's one thing. 2, I paint. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I draw and paint. I used to do it a lot more, but now it's a very private me thing. Because I feel like some creative pursuits should not be public. Because then it suddenly becomes about the likes and the engagement and this and that. And some things are better off being
for
private.
your inner sanctuary.
Yeah. I cook. I make a really mean kosha mangsho and mishti pulao, which is like, anyone that's tasted it knows it's something else. How else do I unwind? I think my inner circle. Oh my God. None of them are actors. None of them are public figures. They're all either doctors or just behind the camera. And I think having that circle is so important.
Yeah.
Because you need people to ground you. It's very easy to get carried away by things like fame and this and that. And I barely have any. But at the same time, the pursuit of it becomes so overwhelming that it can make you lose sight of what you came here for.
Yeah.
And I don't want to forget the version of myself in a hospital that would clean up wounds the entire day and was grounded to that reality, because that is also me. That it's just as much of a of an important part of who I am, and it's never going to go away. And
Did medicine help you figure out a little more about yourself through the journey at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like medicine is this beautiful thing where, you don't just learn about the human body, but you also learn about human behavior. If you're paying close attention to your patients, you learn so much. And gynecology, for me, was that, one area where, womanhood became about so much more than just giving birth.
Yeah.
Which is funny, because you would think that gynac is where it's all about giving birth, right? But when you speak to women of different backgrounds, different families, one woman is losing her uterus to cancer, right? Whereas one woman is giving birth in a conservative family that wants a boy. And the pressures that every woman has to go through in that department, you realize that womanhood is extremely complicated. And the pain that a woman goes through when she loses her uterus to cancer, I was able to sit and talk to her about what it's like to be an infertile woman. I never thought that in gynac I would relate to a patient.
Yeah.
And it brought that for me. Or even when a woman was in pain, in labor, to be able to say, I've been through the catheterization, because she was curious, and you can say that, okay, it's not as painful as you think.
Yeah.
The smallest of interactions in that field brought about such a relationship with those patients and yourself.
Yeah.
And you realize that that's what womanhood is about. It's about a shared feeling of sisterhood.
Yeah.
And being able to stand up for each other despite our differences, and at the end of the day, just own it.
That's so true, because I thought about it one day and I was like, I could be in a situation where I completely despise someone.
Yeah.
But if she needs something, again,
Yeah.
as a woman, as a part
Yeah.
of that sisterhood, let's say she needs a sanitary napkin and
Yeah.
we're in a washroom.
Correct.
And she could be anyone.
Yeah.
I would do it.
Of course.
You would do it without batting an eyelid, because that is just what it means to be a
Correct.
woman, just understanding other women.
Exactly.
So it doesn't matter whether you have, any animosity or whatever that might be.
Yeah.
Women just are built like that.
Exactly. If you and someone else, you're on a street and there is a threat to safety, will you not stand up for each other?
Always.
Exactly. So
No matter how you feel about that person.
Bilkul. So womanhood is many things, but it is also the relationship that we build with other women.
Yeah.
And I've realized that as a daughter, as a sister, as many things. Of course, I'm not saying that a woman is the relationship that she has to other people, especially men. But at the same time, my discovery of what it means also came through those relationships.
Yeah, that's very fair.
And I know that that's only going to sort of enrich my experience of womanhood as the years go by, which is the case with any woman, you included, as you meet, hopefully, the right person and, the relationship that you build. All of those things add to our journeys of transition.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, speaking of love and relationships, we play a game with all our guests. And yours is called Trin with Trin. So you are on a hotline and people are asking you for relationship advice. Okay, so I'm going to read out situations and Trin will then just be like, hello. So just pick up and be like, hi. Yeah, okay. So situation number 1. A girl says, my boyfriend said that there's no such thing as a platonic friend, and he has asked me to stop talking to all my male friends. What should I do?
Hi.
I love it.
Red flag.
Yeah.
I mean, see, I feel like in any relationship, you're allowed to bring up apprehensions if someone is doing something that hurts you or makes you feel a certain way. That's valid. But if what is hurting you is the fact that your friend has male friends, I mean, come on. Like, you have to allow an individual this space to have friendships of any gender and perhaps fix your insecurity first before projecting that onto someone in their friendships. Bye.
Bye. Completely agree. Okay. So, I don't know how to start a conversation with my crush. How should I do it?
I will tell you when I find out. Because I don't know, bro.
All conversations are started by other people only with you. Trin, let's just keep it
it's true.
honest.
Yeah, I have never been the person that initiates or and I know it's not a good thing, but I'm a shy girl. Like, what can I say?
You and me both. Can we also say we've not needed to?
Yeah.
Is that rude?
No.
No. Okay. So
we've not needed to.
We've
It's
not
true.
needed to. Sorry. Can't help. I asked my girlfriend that we should start splitting the bills and she got offended.
The girlfriend got offended
Yeah.
when?
The guy is asking that, I asked my girlfriend that, I think we should start splitting the bills and she kind of got offended.
That depends on your incomes. If you're one millionaire and you're dating someone that has a very small paycheck and you're asking to split 50-50, then that might be equality, but it's not equity. That sometimes when it comes to relationships, you also have to give what you can give, right? So there have been relationships where, say, my partner was not making as much or sometimes making lots more. So we take care of things accordingly. So maybe figure out why, you're offended, why your partner was offended, and see if you can work around it.
Yeah.
But if you come from similar income sources, then it shouldn't be an issue to split.
I agree. 100%. Okay. So I'm dating an older man who keeps mansplaining things to me. What should I do, Trin?
I love that you're asking me this question as if I have lots of experience in the matter.
We are just playing tring. So,
Great.
So whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, just like tring. I've also been bajjed in my relationships every single time with my mental health completely down the drain.
ये सब लड़कियों की एक ही problem है.
God.
What to do?
I would say that, okay, see, first of all, if there's a significant age disparity, then that itself could be a red flag.
Yeah.
Because I feel like even though age is just a number and all that, one jail is also just a room. Yeah. And apart from that, even if you are adults and consenting, age does bring a lot of maturity and a lot of lived experience. Maybe not for everybody, but in general, yes. And it's possible that a very large disparity will create incompatibility, right? But if someone is mansplaining to you, I mean, I would say that's a red flag. I don't know about buy or not, but at least try and figure out if that can be worked around. Yeah, because I would not take it.
But can you change someone's mentality? Uski mentality wohi hai.
I think from personal experience with my father, okay, he is like, what, 55 now? He has changed a lot as a person. But that is because as a daughter, I've had to sit and explain things to him. As a partner, maybe you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
So if you feel like you're having to do something that is so taxing and so draining, then walk away.
Yeah. Then you can do bye.
Yeah.
Try, otherwise bye.
Agreed.
Okay, fine. My best friend's boyfriend hit on me last night. What do I do?
Oh my God. Firstly, does your best friend have an open situation with this person? If yes, then okay. But if not, you need to tell your best friend and have that conversation. And if you and if two girls have a healthy friendship, then this will not become a problematic conversation, which it can be, because I've been there. And said
you
friend...
have experienced everything only in the 5 situations Trin has picked up. Yeah, hard relate.
Oh my God. But I think, it's happened that said friend didn't trust me. She was insecure. And she was like, I think you're lying. I think you may have done something to bring this on, etc. That shouldn't happen.
That shouldn't happen.
And if that's happening, then you should maybe evaluate that friendship also.
Yeah.
But this is something you should bring up and discuss. And if your friend gets you, she will understand. She will work around this.
Well, thank you for your brilliant advice. And
thank you.
It was a pleasure. And
ये क्या questions थे?
ये बस
मजा,
ending segment में
मजा.
मजे करने के लिए.
Loved it.
But thank you for coming. It was
of course.
such an honor, and I've admired you for so long. So this is fantastic, and completely my pleasure and privilege. And hopefully, I'll see you soon.
Absolutely.
And I can't wait to see you on the screen again.
Oh my God. So stay tuned for that. You never know.
You never know.
I'll tell you more about that off camera.
Done. Done.
But no, listen, thank you. I think it's really special to have a conversation with a woman always. And when it comes with sensitivity and a sense of sisterhood, it reminds me why we do any of this, right? So thank you.
Thank you.